Time now for the Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, presented by 89-1 The Bash and the Gibson Southern Titan Football Boosters, including A&B Logistics, LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine, LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillback Properties, Diversified Instruments, DuBois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage, Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate, Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Fryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Salmon Photography, Key Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungan State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Health, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Cole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Vernado Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department and 89.1 The Bash.
And welcome back to another episode of the Nick Hart Show here on 89.1 The Bash. I am Austin Harrelson, and alongside me, Coach Nick Hart, as always. Coming off a 42-14 point victory over Indian Creek, one game away from the state championship. It has been an awesome season for the Gibson Southern Titans. And we're going to go ahead and get this out of the way. In that 42-14 point victory, star quarterback Zach Foster goes down right before halftime, and it looked to be a really bad injury. And Coach, it was tough seeing Zach go down. How is he holding up physically and mentally right now?
Yeah, I think is as good as can be expected. Given the circumstance. Had a successful surgery on Saturday morning and got home Saturday night. I think a lot of our guys have been over to see him, and I have as well. He's in good spirits. All considering, and just kind of what you'd expect from Zach. It's a tough kid and tough mentally and physically. We obviously hate it for him. But he'll come out of this and be, just as good as he ever was. And, we're excited for that.
It's awesome that he's doing well, and, surgery went well, and with all things considered. So going back to the game, it's a, 42 to 14 point victory. It didn't really feel like the last two playoff games, down to the wire, comeback victories for the Titans. What was kind of different in that first half? I know the past two games, I know we've talked about it. It's been really slow getting things rolling offensively. What was kind of different in this ball game?
Yeah, thought we came out and played, really well from the start. I think one thing is kind of reflected back on in the past couple of weeks. I think our kids, have goals. They have a mission that they want to accomplish, and they were probably putting some pressure on themselves to do that more so than they needed to. So we kind of talked about being loose and playing loose from the start to get off to a fast start. I thought they did a great job of that. And really, other than the kickoff return, I thought that's the best we've played in a long, long time from an execution standpoint. Offense was clicking and scored in all but one of their drives, and the first team defense didn't surrender a point. So thought we did a great job, and that's as well as we've played in quite a while.
What was your message to your team at halftime? Obviously with an injury like Zach experienced, and just kind of the impact that he's had on this season. When a player like that goes down, it's a big blow. And you could kind of feel from the sidelines. And but coming out of the second half, it felt like this team was fired up. What was your message to this team at halftime to kind of keep their heads held high?
Yeah, at halftime it was just kind of reminding them what we had done the past couple of weeks, and that the game wasn't over, and we had to continue to play at the level we did in the first half. There was because of the stoppage, there was some time to kind of talk before we went back out there with like a minute 30 to go. And actually, I just kind of delivered a message from Zach as I was out there with him. He told me, make sure you go win the game and finish the job. And so I just kind of, passed that along to the team about what Zach was saying. So, even, as he was down and out, he was still leading us, which is, just the kid that he is.
So, Coach, I've been talking with you for, a while now, and if I know anything about the way that you coach, you can always find something after a big time win and a good win that this team can improve on. What is something that you're looking to improve upon from this past matchup heading into this big time matchup against Cascade?
Yeah. I think the obvious one is, our kickoff lanes. We kind of got out of our lanes there. It was a well-executed return by them, but, we kind of opened up a big lane to help them out. So I think that's kind of the glaring one. But then, just some minor detail stuff of, maybe where we fit a run or where we were in pass coverage. Some things up front on the offensive line. Just little bitty things that we can fine tune kind of going into this week.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here on 89-1 The Bash, but when we come back, we're going to talk about this new look Gibson Southern Titans offense.
This special sports presentation of 89-1 The Bash is made possible by A&B Logistics LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillbeck Properties, Diversified Instruments, DuBois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Ryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Beatty Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, and by Hillside Gardens.
And we are back here on 89.1 The Bash with another episode of the Nick Hart Show. And Coach, this is a really weird time to have a new starting quarterback, and you're a game away from the state championship. And we've seen a little bit of Caden Rochlow. Obviously we know he's an outstanding punter, mind you. Kind of talk about Rochlow's game and kind of talk about what he can provide for Gibson Southern heading into next week.
Yeah, you kind of said new look offense. I don't think it's going to look that new. Caden's a junior. He throws the ball really well. I think he's got tremendous arm talent. Obviously, he showed his athleticism on the long touchdown run on Friday night, and he has a really good grasp of our offense. So our offense isn't going to change, and I think that's where we're really fortunate, right? Like, and we've been in this situation sometimes, but especially in 3A football, you're not always going to have a great backup quarterback. I think Caden would start for a lot of football teams and be pretty darn good as the starter. So that's a luxury. I think the other luxury is, he plays the same way Zach does. There's some minor differences, but sometimes you might have a good backup, but your number one guy is a pocket passer, and then you have a dual threat guy that's the backup, or vice versa, and you kind of have to change a little bit of how you're attacking. Caden is able to, he's a dual threat guy just like Zach. So that really allows us to just continue playing the way that we're playing. And like I said, he's got a great grasp of the offense. So, it's not like something where we have to like shorten the game plan because, the backup quarterback's in. I think the only thing he doesn't have a ton of is experience, like varsity experience, but he's a junior. He's played a lot of football. He's played a lot of football in our system. And I think it kind of showed with the way that he stepped in and played on Friday night, that he can do a lot of things to help keep our offense moving.
Yeah, and I think that this is also a little bit of a preview to next season as well. With, like you said, Rochlow's a junior, and he's going to be a senior next year, and so a little bit of a preview of Rochlow heading into next season. Everybody at work's been asking me about about this kid, and I exactly what you said. I'll tell them he's athletic. He's got a cannon for an arm, and so those are the two things that I'm relaying. Back to everyone that's asked me about it. What impressed you the most about Rochlow kind of being able to come in, just how he came into the game and how he was able to keep that offense moving? Kind of talk about how impressive, first off, that is, and just talk about his performance last Friday.
Yeah, I think the first thing that stood out to me, he probably liked to have his first couple throws back. I think he came in, but he played phenomenal after that. But I think, stepping into that spot in a regional championship, just the command he had of the offense. We put a lot on our quarterbacks with, where the ball's going to go and stuff like that. And, just the command at which he ran the offense. He obviously made throws. He made a big run. Like, everybody can see that. But, the way he just had control of the offense and got us into right stuff and just operated the offense, at a really high level. That's what really stood out to me.
Kind of go into depth about how important it is. You have a guy, you have your backup quarterback coming into a big time game. Kind of talk about how important it is. We saw a lot of Eli Foster last week in the backfield. Having him and Colin Shear kind of handling that backfield, how important is it to have those two running backs to kind of take off, take some weight. There it is. Take the weight off of Rochlow's shoulders heading into this game.
Yeah, it's big. And again, it kind of starts with our O-line. I thought our O-line played great on Friday. they did a great job in pass protection. They, we ran the ball really, really effectively on Friday. So, I think it starts up front and having those guys that have played so much football up front, kind of leading the way, opening up holes for Colin and Eli. I thought it was nice, to get Colin off the field a little bit. I thought he ran fresher, just having somebody to kind of take some of the carries off of him. And that's what you got to do. And I thought our guys did a really good job of that. You lose somebody like Zach, and Caden's more than capable. But a guy coming in a regional championship game and, having to take, kind of some of his first, varsity, meaningful snaps. I thought we played really well around him. And it doesn't matter if it's your quarterback or your safety. Like when you have somebody go down, everybody else around them has to play better and make their life easier, and make their job a lot easier. So I thought our guys did a great job of that. We executed at a really high level. Caden was a part of that, but I thought we played really well around him, which is important as well.
Absolutely. And we're going to take a quick break here on 89-1 The Bash. When we come back, we're going to talk about this awesome defensive performance in this 42-14 point victory over Indian Creek last week.
This special sports presentation of 89-1 The Bash is made possible by HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Salmon Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Union State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Health, Owensville Auto Body, and by Parker Excavating.
And we are back here on 89-1 The Bash with another episode of the Nick Hart Show. So the offense kind of, with the Foster injury and the new quarterback, they kind of took the spotlight a little bit away from this defense. And I thought this defense played absolutely phenomenal. After a kick return touchdown from Indian Creek, stalled them the rest of the game until running clock came along. Let's kind of talk about talk about this defensive performance and how they were able to stop a good Indian Creek squad.
Yeah, I thought we executed at a really high level on all three levels of the defense. I thought our guys really kind of understood the game plan, played it really well. Thought we were really physical. We always fly to the football, so I thought we did a great job of that again. But I think the big thing is you just kind of look at us through the season. We didn't give up huge chunk plays on the defensive side, and anytime that we limit those chunk plays, it's going to be really hard for teams to sustain drives and go down and score against our defense. So I thought they did a great job of that, of staying on top of their receivers. We did a really good job in the run game of not just limiting big plays, but they really had a hard time getting the running game going. But no, I just thought we executed at a really high level on everybody on the defensive side.
So I want to highlight one player, and he's a heavy two-way player, and that's Lloyd Sellers. And Lloyd Sellers has 10 interceptions this year, which, according to Max Preps, leads the whole state of Indiana. How awesome is it to have a DB back there that when the ball's in the air, he's a ball hawk. He also plays wide receiver as well, which also helps with this cornerback ability. Kind of talk about how awesome it is to have a corner like Lloyd Sellers who's able to have 10 interceptions in a season.
Yeah. This is his first year playing corner, and I think he stepped in and done a phenomenal job. He's a playmaker. He's going to go make those plays. I joked with him after the game. He dropped one. I told him if he could, catch a little bit better, he'd have 11 right. But no, he's done a remarkable job, especially for a first year guy playing over there. Of his coverage and making plays and interceptions.
Yeah, he's played absolutely awesome. I felt like I haven't highlighted him like I should have on this show throughout this season. But we're going to take a quick break here on 89-1 The Bash. But when we come back, we're going to talk about a much anticipated matchup against Cascade here in just a moment.
This special sports presentation of 89-1 The Bash is made possible by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body.
And we are back here on 89-1 The Bash with another episode of the Nick Hart Show. Coach, you're coming off a 42-14 point victory. It felt like it was really the best performance of the postseason for Gibson Southern. Now, okay, you're going from a home game, a packed home game. You're going all the way to, I believe it's Clayton, Indiana. You're taking on a really good Cascade team. They're undefeated heading into this matchup. I guess at this point in the season, there's 4 teams left. Every team's really, really good. Kind of talk about this Cascade team, what you've seen on film, and what kind of stands out to you about heading into this matchup.
Yeah, really good football team. I think they showed it last week. Going down and beating Lawrenceburg at Lawrenceburg. That's a tough place to play. And Lawrenceburg always has a great program. So I think that says everything you kind of need to know about their team right there is going down and beating them. Offensively, I think they're very good. And their scheme and their system, it fits really well together. I think they do a great job of knowing what to attack. And if you take this away, they're going to go here. They might get mad at me if I call it wing T because they're kind of like in a double wing, but it's a wing T offense. And I think what's kind of unique about them is you think about a wing T offense, you usually think like, ball control. We're going to, steadily move the ball down the field. They hit they're up tempo. They want to go fast. They hit so many big plays out of their stuff. They have some really electric guys offensively, and they give you so many different looks and formations and motions. And when you kind of break it down, like it's a lot of the same plays and stuff, but they dress stuff up very, very well. And like I said, they do a really good job of attacking defenses. And so like when you have a scheme like that, plus some really good football players, some electric guys, and they execute. You can tell they're really well coached because they execute at a really high level. That makes them very, very difficult to stop. They don't throw it a ton. Probably they throw it more than most like teams that are running a wing T style of offense. Their quarterback hasn't thrown a pick all year, I believe, which is really impressive. He's somewhere around 30 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he really takes care of the football. And I think they do a really good job of, being really run heavy. And then, bam, here comes a play action pass. and make you pay with it. So, I think when you play a team like this, you got to be really, really disciplined in what you're doing, and I think their tempo causes some issues because it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of throw some different looks at them. So that's some stuff we've been working on this week, but you gotta be on your keys, because they're going to move around. They use some misdirection, some of those type of things. So, it's going to be a big challenge for us defensively. And you just kind of look at their scores this year, and how much they're scoring. I think this week in the regional, 37 was the least amount of points that they've scored all year. So, that when you just kind of look at that, it's going to be a challenge going in.
Yeah, that was going to be the one thing that I was going to point out. You look at their schedule, and they put up 98 points on a team this year. Like this team is absolutely no joke offensively. And you kind of look, if you go and look at their stats, they've got playmakers everywhere, double-digit touchdowns everywhere. Kind of talk about how you as a coach, you go into a week of practice knowing like they've got 4 different guys at their skill positions that have double-digit touchdowns. Like, how do you go about preparing against a team like that with so many playmakers?
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things where like you're not focusing on taking one guy away, because if you do that, the others are going to make you pay. I think it's about being sound in what we do, making sure we have as much covered as we possibly can. It starts up front. We in order to be successful, we're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. And then, I think what they do a really good job of is when you do control the line of scrimmage, they get to the edges. They get to the edge almost at will. It seems like they do a really good job, scheme wise and athlete wise, of getting out in space and making you pay. So like you kind of think like, oh, they're on the ball a lot. Why don't you just stack the box? Well, if you stack the box, they're going to be in the alley the whole night.
Right.
So we just got to be sound and disciplined. Try and make them drive the football down the field and not hit the home runs that they're capable of, which is easier said than done because they're always making big plays. But that's something we've got to try and do is be sound and make those 4-yard gains instead of 40-yard gains, and try and make them line up and do it again.
Now, just a quick coach question. Is it easier to game plan against a team where they have one guy, like, hey, they've got one big time player, we need to key on him? Or is it easier to kind of go into a matchup like this one where they've got a lot of good guys, you kind of just have to, do what you normally do?
I guess it depends on who the one guy is.
Right, I guess.
But yeah, I think that's always easier. When you have a team that can get it to a number of guys in a number of different ways, that certainly makes it more challenging.
So offensively, I know we've already talked about, you've got Caden Rochlow new in at quarterback this week, getting his first start of the season. How are you preparing offensively against Cascade, and what do they kind of provide defensively?
Yeah, they're going to be a 3-4 defense, which is similar to what we saw last week. Again, really well coached. They don't get out formationed. They're really sound in what they do, and really physical. I think that's something that really kind of pops on film is how physical their defense is at defeating blocks and getting to the football. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge as well. And like you said, there's only 4 teams left. Like these type of games are going to be tough and be a challenge. And we just have to do a good job. Again, I think it kind of starts up front for us. If we're able to run the football, that's kind of been our key to success this year. And like I said, just kind of mixing up looks. We're with Caden in there, still very capable of running our full, offensive stuff. So, just, on both sides, we're going to have to execute at a really high level in order to be successful. And, I think that they probably think they have to too. That's what, when you get down to 4, that's what you got to do in order to move on. So, really good football team. I have a lot of respect for the way they play and what they do. And, it's going to take a great week of practice for us. And then, get on the bus and come off and be ready to play on Saturday night.
Yeah, and I'm speaking for every fan out there. We are all excited to watch this Gibson Southern team play at a chance for another state title, which is obviously it's a humongous deal. My last question for you is, obviously your eyes are set on the big prize. You want to win the state championship. How happy are you that this group of guys was able to make it at least this far, if not to the state championship? And just talk about how happy you are for these guys this season.
Yeah, I think anytime that you get to this point, it's a great thing. It's great for the program. And especially with our sectional, the way it's been here in the recent years, like, you get out of your sectional, then you got to go win a regional, to get there. So, it's something we've kind of been talking about. Last week, we, talked a lot about there's only 8 teams in 3A that are getting to do what we get to do. And this week it's 4. Just thrilled for our guys. They've worked really hard to have this opportunity. I think it goes a little deeper, just as a program. Our young guys that aren't on the field as much here the past few weeks, I've always thought when you kind of make these runs, it's almost like an extra, like a spring ball, if you will, for your young guys that get to play extra football in November. They're getting better and better every day for when it's their time. They have more experience and more practices under their belt.
Yeah, I also think another point for these young guys is, you get to a spot like this, you got to get a taste of what it's like. Like, hey, this is what you have to do to get to a spot like this. And you don't really know that until you're in that spot. And it's like, oh, so like we got to do all of this. And so we're just excited for the up and coming program. They show it, whenever they get the chance. We saw a little bit last week, these young guys getting a chance to play in a big time game. And so it's awesome. And it's definitely a surreal feeling for them. So, Coach, it's always great to have you on here on 89 The Bash. And I'm hoping when I talk to you next week, we're talking about playing in the state championship. That would be absolutely awesome. Super excited for you and the guys over at Gibson Southern. So hopefully you guys come out with a victory on Saturday, which the game is Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Time, which will be 7 p.m. I believe it's Eastern.
Yes.
Yeah, my sense of direction kind of goes out the window sometimes. But so just make sure to tune in to 89 The Bash for the call. I'll be on the call as always. And make sure to tune in next week for another episode of the Nick Hart Show, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Coach, it's been awesome talking to you. And I hope next time I'm talking to you, we're talking about state championship.
All right, sounds great.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Hart Show on 89.1 The Bash. Brought to you by the Gibson Southern Football Boosters, including A&B Logistics LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillback Properties, Diversified Instruments, Du Bois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Ryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungan State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Help, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, and 89.1 The Bash.